It's a strange fact about the human psyche, and it is that happiness, contentment, or even joy creeps up on us unexpectedly. Moreover, these beautiful emotions are fleeting and untenable. As an outcome, we can understand Wordsworth's lines, which go, "Surprised by joy, as fleeting as the wind." On the other hand, our darker moods are more easily found and persistent, so anxiety, worry, and despondency brood willingly on our encouragement of them. This too seems the way of the kingdom of heaven. Glimpses of it are short-lived and impossible to hold on to. Yet rather like those sunny human feelings, once experienced, the rapture of heaven's vista is intoxicating, if not downright addictive. Can then Christ's teaching about the kingdom of heaven help us experience its hidden presence more often? Let me read something of it from Matthew's Gospel. I'm going to be reading in chapter 13. He put another parable before them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It's the smallest of all seeds, but when it grew, it was larger than all the garden plants put together, and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air can come and make their nests in its branches." He told them another parable. "The kingdom of heaven is like leaven that a woman took and hid in 3 measures of flour, till it was all fully leavened. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who, on finding one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it." We start with the idea of the mustard seed. For a seed has only a small value in its own right. Its true worth is in its promise of a harvest. Perhaps then we need to commence our search for a moment in heaven by only accepting that it exists in the first place. Now humans, indeed, naturally, look for all sorts of sources of hope. It could be in politicians and ideologies, it could be in sport or creative endeavour, it might be in offspring. A few get consolation from some philosophy or other. Sadly, still more do not find hope and believe their hope for heaven is an illusion. Jesus takes a different view. He suggests that we start small and work upwards. For that he says, "Listen to me and then look. Don't take your current experience at face value. Plant it with a prayer and see what comes up. Above these, accept my promise that with diligence I will show you shards of heaven and turn them into instants on the emotional hilltop." For that is exactly what Jesus refers to when he talks of life in all its fullness. For amusement, I've been watching the YouTube clips by Andrew Cotter and his 2 dogs, Olive and Mabel. Recorded during the lockdown, they offered moments of innocent fun, so much so he ended up on breakfast TV. Since it is one of the characteristics of social media that a post about Granny and her cat can go viral across the globe, and through such uplifting offerings, people find something to cope with their own darkness and challenges. We too, as followers of Jesus, have a similar type of responsibility, and that's not just to search for the kingdom, but to post its goodness as well. It need not be a grand exposition of higher things. Just being there for another is used enough, since that is often sufficient to lift their gloom and fatigue. That is more than enough to leaven their daily lump and dough into the delicious bread of life. And you know, that's a strange thing about yeast. It is a living, growing organism. So when we give the kingdom's yeast life, it multiplies and gives us back more and more, so that there is abundance for all. I really only use Facebook, but even with only one social media source, it's all too easy to be swamped not just with information, but also bad news and views as well. Put directly, we need to be careful what we read. We do that best by searching wisely, sifting judiciously, and above all, thinking deeply. Similarly, we need to look for the seeds of hope and offer the east of support and consolation and consideration with commitment. That, of course, takes time. Or as Jesus said, it's like searching a field for a treasure of great value. C.S. Lewis, in his book entitled Surprised by Joy, wrote this: "Joy is like a signpost to those lost in the woods, pointing the way, and that its appearance is not as important when we have found the road and are passing signposts every few miles." More simply, moments of joy are the adverts of heaven. Therefore, like all signposts, we need to be actively looking for them. If we hope to make changes in our jaded outlook, we must strive to see God's directions. If we feel called to help someone else out of a hole, we need to give them escape signage with a hard labour of faith. Now that sounds expensive, but it's not really, since Jesus himself reminds us that to those who have, more will be given. So, let us plant the seed, let us inoculate with yeast, and let us give their wine and their bread to others. Moreover, these are but small costs for buying a pearl beyond price, which will be our joy forever. Amen.